Hi guys, welcome to the world is your bowl of noodles, slurp noodles and chat. I am the host Jordan Ibukwe, and please give it up for a very special guest, Efron, who is an award-winning storyteller, naturalist, and biodiversity advocate. He's absolutely amazing. I will link his Instagram below in the episode. And Efron, do you want to tell if there's also any platforms that you want our audience to go check out?
Hi everyone, thank you Jordan for doing such an amazing job. So yeah, I think the best platform would be like the website. They can get access to everything else there, you know.
And like I always say, please go check out and support both of our initiatives, The World is Your Bowl of Noodles and Efron's page. He's honestly amazing. And just thank you for being here. And let's get into the episode. Right, Efron,
Of
do you want
course.
to tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Yep, of course. I've always seen myself as a biodiversity advocate. And so, I've been most of it has been through science communication, but I've had the opportunity to speak at conferences and so on. But I would like people to see me as a person who can connect you to nature so that you can clear that gap and understand nature, and as a result know that it's an ally for us in fighting against climate change, and that it is with nature that we can rewild the world and combat climate change, to be honest. So I think, yeah, that is a short summary on who I am and what I do.
That's me. That's amazing. I feel like climate change needs to be more addressed, and I love that people like you are taking that initiative and making it known in big spaces as well as big conferences that this is our world and we need to start taking care of it. And I do want to get into the first question, and I want to know what first awakened your sense of wonder for the natural world, and how has that spark evolved over time?
um well, to be honest, if I close my eyes, I can sometimes, feel the warmth of the desert sun on my skin, or those rains that fell in the forests, or in the mountains, that the hum of cicadas, which they echo through the dry air. This the silence of dunes, for example, stretching endlessly towards the horizon. It was there, I believe, that in those vast spaces or ecosystems of seeming emptiness, that I first discovered that life persists, even in the most unlikely of places, especially in the deserts. It is hard to imagine that now because it can get very cold here in Australia. But yeah, and then when we look at it, people always come and ask me like, "Why you have grown up there? It's a beautiful city." I said, "Yeah, it's even more. It has got even more beautiful wildlife." They're like, "Is it?" But I'm telling you, there is a spring of green breaking through the sand at times. A goth tree, it could be, a lizard darting across the dune, or a bird carving the air above, or a pitted beetle positioning its abdomen over the dune to collect morning mist. And I think that early fascination was not really born from textbooks, but mainly from observations and connecting with nature, from listening, from listening to the world that to be honest has changed, that I've seen it change, and has gave rise to life of so much diversity over and over again, with extinctions and so on. And as a child, you can go and read books and news and see the statistics, but I didn't have the language of science, but I had wonder, and over the years that wonder matured, of course, into purpose, and I learned that curiosity, when guided by compassion, becomes stewardship, and so my life's work began, not merely, to study nature itself, but to speak for it. And it is through the natural world that we come to see resilience and wonder again, you know and yes, I work to basically translate its silent resilience into human words, so others might remember what it means to basically belong to something greater than ourselves.
That's a beautiful story when you said that you once speak for nature. It's just how it's so beautiful how you felt connected in moments of just biodiversity, just being by trees and deserts. And so I love that you take the time to appreciate nature and her beauty and just really be in it, experience that just wealth, I could say, like the richness of just nature and what it can provide us. And honestly, it's
Yep.
beautiful. at the same time. And I want to understand many people feel disconnected from nature today. And so, what moments in your life have most helped you stay reconnected when that moment happens?
To be honest, I've always told us that we live in an age of noise, of constant motion, of glowing screens and endless scrolling of devices measured in notifications rather than, moments. And we have mistaken speed for progress and distracting, we are distracting ourselves from the living world around us. Yet nature, when you look at it, it's ever patient and ever forgiving, and it's waiting for us to remember our connection with it. Um, to be honest, like I think personally, when I feel that disconnection creeping in, especially like as a university student, it's going to get much worse because I just finished my first year, second year, and stuff is going to get much worse. But I think I return to the simplest act of attention, let's say, for example, just walking to a reserve and lying beneath a canopy, or simply watching the sunlight tremble through the leaves. Um, I think it's to connect with the land itself, and that people have got different ways of doing that. Some of them go through bird watching, some of them go do it through just having soil in their hands and planting. But I think it's basically to listening to that slow, meditative rhythm of waves again and again, and if you look at it, waves against this stone, and to be honest, I cannot sit home for a long time. I cannot sit at class for a long time. So I need some outdoor and nature time, and it gives me energy. My friends say I might be photosynthesizing, but then yeah, it is what it is, and I think reconnecting is not always that grand. It is intimate, and it isn't found in distant expeditions or untouched wildernesses. But I think it's found in quite the act of noticing. While cycling to work, for example, you see birds, feeding in the grass, and you're going around Australia, for example, around the footpaths. And I think it'll make you realize that when you rewild the earth, we must first rewild our own minds, because you can then strip the concrete layers of distraction and rediscover our capacity for awe and wonder. So yeah, I think that fairly covers it. I think, yeah.
It's beautiful because, yes, we in this Asian society, we live in a technology-based world. And so having that moment to spend time with nature and to just have, like you said, the intimacy of just being outdoors and just like staying there, if it means just observing how the sun reflects on the trees or on the leaves itself, it's beautiful. Like I have a few trees in my neighborhood. I look right now, it's fall, so the leaves are brown, yellow, and green. It's so beautiful, like pretty how like they all just like create this canvas and stuff. And so that's honestly amazing how you can find that reconnection again through just observing and being outside. And I do want to go into your storytelling and creativity, and I want to know, how do you weave scientific truth and emotional truth together in your storytelling?
To be honest, it is, like you're asking me a question which is you're also doing it. You're very much spreading people's stories. And I think instead of doing that, you could have spread the science. you know. But I think deep down we all realize that science does give us the bones of the story, anyways. Whether it is the facts or the data or the anatomy of life or you know. But I think if you want to make people care about something, similar to how Dr. Jane Goodall did it, it is to give it flesh, and that is the emotions, which gives it the heart and gives it a voice as well. You know, Now, let's say when I speak or when I film or when I write, I strive to weave these two truths together, because for although they are not opposites, but they are actually companions. I'll give you an example. From, let's say, me using a microscope. When you look at the microscope reveals the details. But when you come and look at all these organisms in it, you will see that it is the heart that understands the meanings behind them. And I think in a world flooded with statistics these days about extinctions, about loss, I think what people can yearn for is not, let's say, more numbers, but a reason to care and hold on to hope, you know? And I think that is a reason found in stories and storytelling, because it's in this fragile beauty of, let's say, corals rebuilding itself, or in the migration of sea turtles crossing the oceans, in the resilience of communities, restoring their forests, or let's say a girl in the middle of, let's say, Carolina speaking with other people in the youth and trying to make her own impact. I think these are the stories that remind us that science is not just knowledge. I think it is a sort of like an ally, to be honest.
That's just the way you tied up everything is so beautiful because these stories are told from the heart. And so the fact that you just observe everyone has a story, every creature, every animal has a story and it's living in this circle of life. And in fact, we're contributing to life, breathing in it. And we're all just living in this vast, big globe. It's just so interesting to see how every one of us is so different. But yeah, we all hope for something, dream of something. And so just like you said, even with statistics and extinction, just everything like that, you just gotta lean on to what's good, lean on to the light.
Exactly.
That's beautiful, just the way you tied it in. And I really want to understand more of like maybe silence, because I know when you're in nature, you have to be quiet and just enhance that, be in the moment. And so, what role does silence or listening play in your creative process when you're out in the fields?
Um, to be honest, yeah, I mean, silence is the great teacher of the natural world. And I mean, like, you can go out there to observe something and be so silent, you might not come across anything at all. But in the unique aspect of here is that, um, in every, let's say, expedition or in every field, or whenever I just go outside, I found that the more, we listen, the more nature has to reveal. And we always have something new to learn from the natural world, whether it is the sacred stillness before the dawn. And I think that that's one of the most key moments, because people are always like, sometimes I'm trying to fix my sleep schedule, but I'm all over the place now. And when you look at the sunrise or the sunsets, it is so crazy that the world suddenly goes from being so diurnal to being nocturnal, with moths and sudden shift in life, as we head, let's say, to dawn, and dawn rises nocturnal to diurnal, and it's crazy. And I think, listening, to be honest, is not passive. It's participation in a way, and it is the act of humbling oneself before the complexity of creation. And within that silence, I think when we truly listen, we begin to hear that, how noisy our cities are, to be honest. Like sometimes, like when you go in the middle of, let's say a mountain, or a forest away from a road, you notice the amount of sounds and diversity in birds, diversity at night, and diversity in bat noises. And let's say, for example, you take the Madagascan moon moth. It is pale, it is emerald wings, and it is beautiful. It has got a shimmer beneath it shimmers beneath the forest canopy, and yet its survival depends upon a single species of tree, you know, the tamburisa. And the moth's caterpillar feeds only exclusively on its leaves, while a tree itself relies on, the moth's presence to keep rival vegetations in check. So it's like a silent contract. Or let's say the drogo bird, where in Africa it mimics the alarm calls of meerkats and other animals to warn and sometimes deceive in complex relationships of trust. So you see, over the many years of experimentation, there are so many examples. Bobtail squids and the soil beneath our feet itself is a huge example. Um, we have evolved over time. The planet has evolved over time in a way that it is becoming a sort of connection. And you cannot break that connection, because, to be honest, we know that very bad things will happen, but we don't know what will happen.
Yeah.
And so the ones I mentioned were just little examples. But they're not, of course, isolated. There's so many else. But I think these are again messages that survival has never been a solitary pursuit. That in order for humanity to survive, we have to really connect with nature. And to be honest, every being, from the smallest spore to the greatest whale, exists in a sort of conversation with the world around it. So when I speak of listening in conclusion, I do not mean with with ears alone. I think it's with presence and with humility, because again between the hush and the hush between the dawn and the dawn chorus and the first rush of the day, the earth is still speaking, reminding us that life is not a hierarchy, but it's in a harmony, You've got suddenly a shift between different group of animals from nocturnal to diurnal, and I think it's a network of listening to souls. So yeah, I think yeah.
Beautiful how just silence you have to be humble because I feel like in a loud society you don't have that chance to just be quiet and just be still. And so actually just taking the time of your own like taking the time out of your own day to really observe and just be in the presence of just nature and just everyone around you. Just looking at things and saying, "Wow, I'm actually in this I'm here, like I'm breathing, I'm alive, I'm interacting with people." And so just smallest things and just being in that presence and just enjoying what you have and just the surroundings is honestly just fabulous. And like I said, you just tied it in so beautifully. Like your words are so wise. And so I just really want to take a quick break and tell my audience to go please support Efron. And I will link his Instagram page below. And just thank you so much for all that you do. And just it's honestly amazing. And also please go support The World is Your Bowl of Noodles and on all platforms. And just thank you for being here. And let's get back into the episode. I do want to go into the next question. And I want to know, like, I know you touched on this before, but as someone who tells stories for impact, how do you balance hope and as well as urgency when addressing biodiversity loss?
Um, that's a hard question. To be honest, there's no story more urgent that of our planet in peril, to be honest, Eh, because like at the end of the day, we realize that the planet does not negotiate, and it is strange, isn't it, that we must keep repeating and repeating and reminding ourselves that the Earth is precious. I mean, though in truth we always know it, but then I mean, yet knowledge alone is not enough.
Right.
Um, I mean, like I lose hope pretty often. Um, and I think a person who inspires me are people who mentor me, like Sir David Attenborough and Dr. Jane Goodall, that I look for hope. And because I mean, like when despair comes in, it paralyzes you. Um, but that when you talk about hope, hope moves mountains. And recently, especially, I've understood the main power of hope after meeting with Dr. Jane Goodall and so on. I have often said that hope is not naive. It's not just naive optimism. It is a decision and a conscious act of courage. And it is not so long ago that I realized the power of hope, as I recalled earlier, mainly through meeting and working with Dr. Jane Goodall at an institution. And I mean, when you look at it, the Earth has known catastrophes before, even humanity, like world wars and so on. And yet, each time life finds a way. Forests regenerate from ashes. Coral reefs, once bleached white, begin to breathe with color again. Species we had written off as lost suddenly sometimes return, quietly rewriting the story of extinction into one of resilience. And that is something I've seen, the nature's power of resilience. And I think hope I've learned is not just, the absence of grief, it is grief basically transformed into action. Because to be honest, people tell like okay, one person does not. But I'm telling you, every person counts. Because like if you look at the ocean is made from thousands and millions and billions of single drops. So a million drops similar to humanity can create a huge impact, can create an ocean. Whether it is rewilding a meadow and children planting a seed, communities choosing, compassion, so many examples out there. And I think I will outline in this case, remembering of meeting Dr. Jane Goodall, because she was a woman whose presence continues still to carry both the weight of history and gentleness of humility. And she always spoke not with urgency, not just urgency, but with the calm conviction, as the earth itself is speaking through her. And we talked about hope because it's something that I have lost and held on to, things that people around me have lost. And you come to realize that it's not an abstract idea, but a living force. Because, she told me that hold on to hope. It is what enables us to keep going, even when the odds seems impossible, because without it, we fall silent. And I think those words stayed with me and they became the pulse behind everything I do, and especially in inspiring the youth. And I think ultimately the foundation of a new book I'm working on, which is called The Heartbeat of Hope, which is a tribute to her. So yeah, when I speak of hope now, I no longer see it as a distant light, to be honest, but as something that lives within each of us. Um, it's basically like I put it something. I had a podcast recording yesterday, and I told that it's like a pulse shared between humanity and the earth itself. That's what hope is, and it's the rhythm that connects a child planting a tree to a scientist restoring a coral reef. To a grandmother, for example, who still tends her garden despite the drought. So I think the heartbeat of hope is real. Yeah.
That's just beautiful how you tie in hope, and I love just like how you truly believe. Of course, we've lost hope. I've lost hope so many times, but I've always found somehow to regain it back again. Always someone telling me something, or just a beautiful message that I've heard from my parents, or just like maybe reading a book, or just having like faith. It doesn't matter, like anything that you want to believe in. People need hope. We need it. It's just somehow that's how we kind of live on, like, hoping for a
Yep.
better tomorrow, hoping for just to get something. And so, honestly, hope is really what drives everything. Yes, this society is messy and nature is being destroyed every single day. But if we can just hope and just take that hope into action, not just hope and sit around and wishing that it can happen, but actually do something about it, then trust and believe that there it will be such an impact and it will actually just help regain the hope again and build what was lost. And so thank you for touching that. That was honestly a beautiful story, and I cannot wait to till your book comes out too as well. I will tell my audience to go check it out when it does. And I do want to go into more of biodiversity and advocacy. And I want to know, in your view, what is the most overlooked or undervalued species that deserves its own story?
You're asking a lot of, hard questions. But because yeah, I cannot choose. Like it's like asking me a favorite animal. I cannot choose it. But I think yeah, I cannot choose a species that is overlooked. But I think because I mean biodiversity is the variety of life on this planet, and I mean every small and every minute organism, the countless shy birds, the humble moss, the unsung beetles, the fungi beneath our feet. All these are unsung heroes, for example. And I mean, they are the invisible majority. You see always like, oh, whenever they talk about, conservation, you see like a tiger coming up in the screen or an elephant. But I mean, the architects of existence are not just the big, huge animals, although they are very important. But it's the minute life form of insects and fungi and so on that is around us. Some break down death and transform into life. And I think they are the unseen storytellers of the earth's renewable. And I think, yeah, I think those are the ones which are undervalued. You see a beetle or a moth which looks like a wasp, and then you go ahead and get scared and you go and kill it and so on, which is I think it's not very nice. So yeah.
That's beautiful how like you said, the architects of nature, the ones that started it all. Learning in AP Bio, we talked more about like eukaryotes and just like just like fungi and protists. And so we have to give, respect to those like organisms because that's how the world kind of started. With just small
Exactly.
things, with just germs, bacteria. And so they're also living and breathing things. They're in us all. And so we have to give respect to the small, simple things because those really make the biggest impact in our ecosystems. And it's just beautiful how, like, even something so tiny can have the most greatest impact. And this results into life itself, no matter what you do or how big it might be, you're still making an impact in this big, first, diverse society. And so it's honestly beautiful. And I do want to know more about just like the legacy and vision. And I know, what kind of stories do you hope future generations will tell about our relationships with nature someday?
Um, Talking about, I just spoke about small animals, and there's a moth sitting on my hand somewhere. There it is. See, can you
Yeah.
see it?
Yeah, I can
No?
see. Well, it's
Yeah.
not. Oh,
There
yeah.
you go. And it flew off. Yeah. I mean, yeah, to be honest, like what kind of stories? I think like people have to realize that every story counts. You know, you're gonna be like, oh, that's just a sparrow. I've already seen that. So on. I'm telling you, the stories count. Um, I wrote a letter to David Attenborough recently about seeing, the bioluminescence here. When you look at Sir David, he has seen all life. But he's like, you're lucky to have seen it, the Noctulica display. I have not been able to see one myself. So, every story matters, and that's how you can connect to people. Um, what kind of legacy will you tell about a relationship with nature? Um, I feel like when you're asking me this question, I feel so old. But I think, jokes aside, I hope they will say that we, and as in they, remembered in time that amidst this chaos, humanity paused and listened and turned back towards the wild, that we rebuilt the bridge we had burnt, that we have stopped seeing the earth as an inheritance to be spent and begin to see it as a legacy to be protected. I hope they will connect with nature, the land and the ancestors, that we are trying to do so now. Perhaps the great story of our time and age is still unwritten, and the story of reconciliation between humanity and nature itself. And I believe, with every fiber of my being, for example, that it can still end in harmony, if you hold on to hope and do something. So yeah,
And just like you said, until the world starts seeing nature as not money, but as a living, breathing thing that is alive, that's taking care of us, then yeah, we can, this when the future can start looking great. But right now, it's just, I hope one day that, governments and especially people in power would think of nature as more than just minerals and just whatever they want to think about, but as life, breathing, living, growing, and
I
just,
think deep down we all know it.
yes.
Deep down we all know it. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's just it's sad that people only think about money, just how to get money, but doesn't they don't think about the impact, the effects, the consequences. And I do want to go into the second to last question of this interview, and I want to know if you could share one message from the natural world that humanity most needs to hear right now, what would it be?
I think like a bit of a drum roll, maybe. The message would be simple, to be honest. It'd be, you belong. You know, you have to realize that you're not visitors here. You are participants in the great unfolding of life. The forest is not your resource; it is your kin. The ocean is not your boundary; they're your beginning. The earth is not something to be saved from afar, but something to be loved up close. And I think when humanity remembers that truth, when we rewild our minds as well as our lands, the heartbeat of hope will once again echo through the living world. So yeah,
That's amazing. Just like he said, guys, you belong. You are here. You are also nature. Nature is, we're all connected in this system of just beauty and diversity. And so it's honestly fabulous that we can all contribute into this beautiful planet. And I do want to ask one more last question. It's a very lighthearted, simple, funny little question. But I do want to know, what is your favorite bowl of noodles?
I see. To be honest, I've got no idea. I don't eat much noodles. Or even if I do, I just make it a mix of something. So um, no idea to be honest.
Hmm.
There
Well,
were any examples, perhaps? Maybe I can choose an out from options.
ramen. Ramen's classic. You also have in the United States, noodles can also be seen as also spaghetti, which even though it's not a noodle, we kind of just combine that term noodle into spaghetti. You have lasagna, you have macaroni, you have tons of it. And you have also food like mac and cheese. I don't know. I think I talked to one of my friends from Australia and she loved this noodle called budok. So it's a ton of noodles that is like just really good, but honestly, if I know a lot of people don't like noodles, they don't eat much of noodles, which I can understand, but I love noodles. So my podcast is named after noodles, so that's why like I just love that. But honestly,
What is
my
what is your favorite?
It's hard to tell because I love noodles. Like I even though like I grew up in like a Nigerian household because like my parents are from Nigeria and I was born in Nigeria, but I came to the United States when I was like 3 years old. So I kind of grew up in this kind of mixed cultural house. Sometimes I'll eat American food and I'll eat Nigerian food and then Chinese food. So I love a lot of noodles, so it's kind of hard to really just say.
You asked me a lot of hard questions. You have to answer this one. What is your favorite?
I would just be really straightforward. I think my favorite is spaghetti, and because it can just make anything out of it, even with different types
I
of.
do agree. I do agree. I think yeah, mine also like a mix of pasta and so on. Yeah.
Exactly. And so honestly, I just love noodles. But thank you so much, Ifran. But thank you so much for just being on the podcast. Your words are absolutely wise, and just please keep making an impact for nature and for the world.
Of course. I mean, like your energy is amazing. So yeah, I mean, like it made my day. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing amazing.